Welcome to the DIY Writer Show with the mild-mannered, slightly heroic host, Jeff Bacon.
This is Jeff Bacon with the DIY Writer Podcast, and today we have Tosca Lee. And if you don't know who Tosca Lee is, she's a New York Times best-selling author. She's got 11 novels out there, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And she, you just have to read her bio because it's pretty daggone impressive. But with that, I'm going to press it over to, I'm going to push it over to Tosca because we got some things to talk about. Tosca, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Not too bad. So how do you become a New York Times best-selling author besides selling a butt ton of books?
That you sell a butt ton of books.
Okay, that's it. That's that's all you have to do.
I talk a lot about this. I actually teach a course on how to become a best-selling author. But it really boils down to you have to dedicate yourself. You have to finish the book. You usually have to write more than one. And, part of it's just luck, honestly.
Yeah.
So there's no real quick formula, but, if you can sell a butt ton of books, then you'll probably make it onto the list.
You like that term, don't you?
Yeah, I like it. I'm going to start using that.
Start using that. All right. How much bacon did you eat this morning? A butt ton. Well, we don't know what that is, but it sounds like a lot.
Yeah, butt ton. That's right. I did eat bacon this morning.
Cool.
Yeah.
Beans.
Yep. Yeah.
So your last two books are kind of interrelated, The Line Between and A Single Light.
Yeah.
Can you kind of go into that for us so we can kind of get into it a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So these are my most recent two books. They both came out in 2019, right before the pandemic hit. And it's a pandemic story. So I'll tell you a little bit about the background of the story. When I was going to New York to meet with my publisher and kind of pitch my ideas for what to do next, I took a list of a few favorite ideas, about 10 favorite ideas. And one of those ideas was a young woman who leaves the doomsday cult and has to start over in the outside world. And another idea I had just gotten from reading a headline. And I had just read this news article about, I think it was in Siberia, it was a reindeer carcass that melted in the permafrost. And it happened to be infected with anthrax, and it made an entire village sick, and a young boy died. And I thought this was fascinating and horrifying. And then all these other related articles popped up, like this scientist, this is real, who injected himself with like 3 million-year-old bacteria from the melting permafrost and claimed he had never gotten a flu since and all this stuff. And then all these seeds that had been germinated from the permafrost and, sprouted. So anyway, so the other idea, one of the other ones was this idea of a disease that comes out of the permafrost and starts a pandemic. So there I am, I'm in the meeting, and there were some other ideas too, but my publisher said, I like this one, the cult girl, and this one, the permafrost, and I think you should put them together and write about that. And I was like, what are you on? I wasn't quite sure how that would work out, but I came home, I live in Nebraska, and it turned out to be a really fun adventure and a fun story to tell. So the story ended up being about a young woman named Winter Roth. She's named Winter is the name of my stepdaughter, and Winter is 22, and she's just left this doomsday cult in Iowa, north of Ames, that she grew up in, and she's having to start over in this outside world that she's been taught to regard as evil. And it just so happens that
I do think it's funny that you use Ames as a headquarters for a doomsday cult, because there is no better place for that than Ames, Iowa.
I was like, where do I put this cult? And I actually had read an interesting article about a religious group somewhere, I think it was in Iowa, that people had been writing about and kind of calling cultish. And I thought, I'll put the people in Iowa. Sorry, Iowa, I put the cult people in your state. But
actually, they did first.
They did first. Okay.
Somehow they attract them. I don't know why.
So
you know,
she has
my
to go
opinion of
start
Iowa
over.
is, yeah, I mean, I love Iowa. It's a great state, but they're
I
kind of
do too. I
laid
have lots of
back.
friends there too.
I know, but they're kind of laid back though. They're kind of like, yeah, better go out and get that green down today, but I could do it tomorrow. You know, probably the same way with cults. Yep, there's that devil cult over there.
Yeah, devil cult.
Yeah, maybe we'll take care of him tomorrow. I don't know. It might be Sunday then, so we might do it Monday. I don't know. Something like that. Anyway.
Well, I've apologized profusely to all my Iowa friends before, you know, just saying, I'm really sorry. I put the doomsday cult in your state, but, you know, I live next door in Nebraska, so.
Yeah, but yeah, I wouldn't apologize too much. They probably had him over for dinner on Saturday night.
Oh, no.
No, come on over. You're neighbors. You know, they're just that kind of friendly.
Yeah. They're friendly. Yes, that's true. They are. So she has to start over. And as she's doing that, this epidemic, which turns into a pandemic, has started creeping across the nation. And so it turns into a pandemic story and a survival story. And a large part of it takes place in Iowa, but a large part of it takes place in Nebraska, which is really fun for me because I've never set any books that I've written before in my home state where I live. So that was fun.
Very cool. So Iowa's the epicenter.
Yes.
And Nebraska has to clean up their mess.
Well, you know, actually, everybody has to go through Nebraska to get to Colorado. And that's usually what's happening. You know, most people are, I've lost track of the number of people who have said to me, oh, I've been to Nebraska. I was driving through it. You know, I didn't stop. Yeah. They're just driving through, going somewhere else. So that happens in this book too.
You know, what's funny is it's okay going through Nebraska to get to Colorado, but it's a little dicey going from Colorado back through Nebraska, evidently.
Can be. Yeah, can be. Yeah. So, I've lost track of the number of times I've driven through like tornadoes and terrible weather. I mean, it always happens whenever I'm driving to Colorado.
So, you know, if the cops pull you over and they say, so you got any edibles in there? Don't say yes. They will unpack your cooler and everything else just to find it.
Oh, okay. I will note to self. Yeah, you're not supposed to bring that stuff back across state lines.
Nope, and they wait for you too.
Oh, they do?
That's what I've seen. It stopped in a truck stop just outside of, oh gosh, I can't remember where it was, but it was, you know, probably about 30 miles into Colorado when I was coming back, 30 miles from the Colorado, Nebraska border. And they were like, so you're going back to Wisconsin through Nebraska? Yep. Watch out for the cops, man. You got anything in there, make sure you hide it good. And it's like, I got my 2 kids. And, my wife and a dog. So you know, what else would I be taking back? Well, you know, he's like, oh, no, I don't have any of that. Play it cool, man. Just play it cool. It's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. Yep. No, you're not supposed to bring that stuff in here. So, no. Yeah, nope. So, yeah, that's the most recent story. And it's been kind of a crazy, wild ride living through a pandemic after writing about one. I have to say.
Do you find, how many similarities do you find with
well, there's a lot of stay home, stay safe, and, you know, health notices about staying home. There is this giant search for a vaccine. I have Russian cyber attacks happen in my book, and that has happened actually. But in my book, the electrical grid goes down, so it's much worse. But there is this, you know, kind of public demand and outcry for a vaccine, and that becomes a kind of a central focus of the books. So, and the first hotspot in the continental U.S. is in Washington, which happened. So it's been, but it's a different kind of disease, completely different. In my book, it's a prion disease, which is the same kind of disease you get from similar to like mad cow, that kind of thing. And it does cause, you know, dementia. So it's very different in that way. But this whole idea of, you know, staying safe, keeping your distance and wearing your hand sanitizer and staying away from infected people is there. So
Did so when I hear Mad Cow, I immediately think of a TV show. Did you ever watch Boston Legal?
Oh yeah, he called it mad cow disease. Yeah,
yeah. William Shatner.
He had Alzheimer's in there, right?
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, it was Alzheimer's. I can't remember if it was
like
Alzheimer's or dementia, but he called it mad cow disease.
Mad cow. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do remember that.
I don't know why, but every time I hear mad cow, I flip to that.
You think of that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a good show, actually.
It was really good.
It was really good.
I don't know, but anyway, I digress. Let's talk about your books.
Yeah. Well, what else can I tell you about those books? I really was scared that nobody would want to read them this last year. But they've probably racked up the most number of awards for any of my books I've ever written. So sure. I lucked out on that one. I lucked out on that one.
I think that there was just in the author community in general, there was a lot of people that were apprehensive about releasing anything that had anything to do with vaccines or anything like that. Yeah. Any kind of pandemic, just because they're, worried about being judged harshly or, oh God, I don't want to read about it. It's happening, that type of stuff.
Right. And a lot of people don't want to. And a lot of people have wanted to, conversely, a lot of people have wanted to, just like, when this whole thing started, a lot of people were watching Outbreak and renting all the, movies like Contagion and all, when this whole, I did too, actually.
Yeah, it's called research at that point.
That's right. Yeah, I had seen all those movies before. I do find the research of that pretty fascinating, but it's much scarier when you're living through it.
Yeah, the real stuff isn't nearly as dramatic.
It's all fine and dandy when it's fantasy, but when it's real stuff, then yeah.
If only it would have been over in 2 hours and 7 minutes, right?
Right. Exactly.
Some sort of a cure found, or find that damn monkey that's spreading the disease.
That's right. Yeah. We found the monkey.
Got him. Yeah. Okay. Save Rene Russo. Yeah, that's all cool.
Saved, yeah. Yep. Exactly.
But so what else is going on there in Nebraska?
It's snowing. It's a snow day. It's beautiful, but I wouldn't mind seeing some sun every now and then. Yeah. But it is a beautiful snow day, and got some soup on the stove, and this is my favorite kind of day. Where you're working and you're stuck at home, and you've been able to kind of, in good conscience, cancel all your needs to go out and run errands or do anything because you're snowed in, and you've got food cooking, and I love days like this, actually. You know what it's like. You live in the cold mid upper west, right? Yeah, so you know all about that.
The thing that gets me about this time of the year is that it snows every other day. It's like an inch or half inch or whatever, but there's always this dusting that seems to happen. And it's January, February, they're just it is what it is. You get snow, you're constantly scraping the driveway and whatever. And
well, especially where you live. Yeah.
So nice thing is that it warms up here a little bit. So we do get warmer weather. By warmer I mean it's 35, 40 degrees at times.
Heat wave.
Really, it feels good. It's not uncommon to walk outside and shovel snow when it's 40 degrees out. It's actually slush at that point in a t-shirt. Right. And you're like, oh God, this is wonderful.
What a great day.
Yeah. Oh man, we should go do something, whereas, everybody in the southern part of the United States is like, bundled up in their parkas and
that's right. Yeah,
freaking out.
That's right.
It's the end of the world. No. It's just 40 degrees. Seriously, you'll live.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so you said you live on a farm. What kind of a farm you got?
Well, my husband grows corn and soybeans, as so many farmers do around here. So he farms with his dad, who lives in the same section, and his brother, who also lives in the same section. Section meaning square mile.
Yep.
This is a whole new life to me. I'm a city girl, and I happened to 5 years ago married a farmer and a single father. So I became an instant mom and an instant farm wife, and have had many adventures since. So this is completely, it's much more normal to me now, but at the time, it was very different. It was a big switch for me.
So how was it? I mean, I would guess the biggest thing would be going from, a cityscape to where, you've got people around you all the time. You can always just jump in, your car or whatever and just go do something real quick to now everything has to be kind of somewhat methodical.
It does, even things like going to the grocery store and things, our closest grocery store is about 15 minutes away, and I got here and I'm like, where's the Trader Joe's? Where's the Whole Foods around here? And do they deliver? So it is different. You have to be a little bit methodical, and, we're not out completely in the boondocks. We can get to Omaha in 20 minutes. So,
it's not so
but
bad.
it was a little different, So when your neighbor's chickens end up in your yard, or, random miniature ponies show up on occasion and you don't know who they are, or at night, the coyotes actually, which I really love the sound of that. The coyotes are singing at night, and you can hear them. And so I definitely enjoy the appeal of country life, and it's got the social distancing built in. So for a year like this last year that we've had, it's perfect.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. The nice thing about living on a farm is you can go out and walk and just be by yourself. And well, I mean, you can be by yourself, and there is the only noise is nature and maybe a tractor or two.
Or a truck going by, but it is all nature, and it's beautiful countryside out here. It's I feel pretty lucky to live out here. So, When we were dating, I still had a townhome in Lincoln, and I started noticing more and more how close the neighboring houses started to feel. Like incrementally, they started feeling closer and closer and closer. And finally, I was like, how do people live like this? They're on top of each other.
Yep. Yeah, I did the opposite. I moved from a farm to different cities, and that's one of the things that drove me nuts. Is you do something in your backyard and somebody pop over the fence. Hey, what you doing there? It's like, I don't think that's any of your business. Go back to your house, please.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It is very different.
It is. I think it's really, we have a pool in the backyard. And we've been fortunate enough to
use
have
for like 2 weeks a year.
I actually have a heater on it, so I kick it up in May and close it down in September. So that makes it that makes it so you can use it. That was a prerequisite of the pool, is that it has to have a heater. Otherwise, no, you actually would use it for 2 weeks a year. But the other problem is that my wife and kids like it at about 85 degrees. So it is bath water when you jump in. So some days it's very nice, but if you're looking for a nice, cold, refreshing pool, that's not it.
That's not it.
No, but the kids like it. So that makes it fun.
Yeah, we have a hot tub, and our kids love to, actually, this is the kind of weather they like to go get out there in. The colder, the better. They like to freeze their hair into shapes. So, I do it sometimes, but it's not really, the getting out and getting in part is kind of hard. Torture.
So what we used to do is, so you turn your hot tub up and you make sure it's as hot as it can go. Okay.
Right.
Nice and hot. And then you jump out of it into the snow.
Oh yeah.
And then come back in and then warm back up. And that was supposed to be a health thing at one point in time.
Yeah. The kids do that. I remain unconvinced. I'm like, I'm over 50 now. I could have a heart attack. I think I'll pass.
It's exactly what it's supposed to prevent is a heart attack. It's supposed to be good for the skin and, good for the heart, puts a little stress on you. Yeah, I know.
I don't know. Can't I just like go work out or go to the spa or something?
Something like
maybe
that.
Maybe I still am a city girl.
I don't know.
I don't know about that.
Some Swedish or Norwegian thing. I can't remember what it was, but
Finnish. Something
Finnish,
like that.
maybe. Yeah, I can't remember, but read it someplace and like, we should try this. And after about 5 times, like, this sucks.
No.
Yeah. But
I'll leave that to the kids.
I switched from a hot tub to I put a sauna in my house. And I've enjoyed that just because you're inside, and it's kind of nice to heat up to 150, 160 degrees or whatever, and sitting there for 30 minutes or an hour sometimes.
Yep.
But
that's nice.
I find that that it's nice if I want to write, just take a notepad in there and heat up. I seem to write faster when I'm hot.
I've never thought about that. I've never thought about that.
I wouldn't do it in a hot tub. That'd be bad.
Yeah, that might not work out.
That might not work out. So what's your day look like? You've written 11 books and so you must have kind of a pattern to your day, I guess. As far as writing goes, do you just sit down and write when you feel like it, or do you I write for 2 hours in the morning, or what do you do? Are you a pantser? Do you outline?
I am not a pantser. I tried to be a pantser when I wrote The Line Between, because I thought, this is my 10th novel I'm writing for publication. This must be intrinsic now, right? I must know, just organically when I need to do certain things. No, that whole thing fell apart and it delayed. I had to rewrite it several more times, and it delayed the publication of the book by a season, like 3 months. So I learned my lesson. I have friends who are well-known pantsers. Stephen James is one of them. And I learned I am not Stephen James. And so when I wrote the sequel, it was like, okay, I'm going to get a good old-fashioned outline.
Nor is he a Tosca Lee, by the way.
Well, no, yeah, that's true. He and I are totally opposite ends of the spectrum. We're good friends, but we couldn't be more different when it comes to our approach. So when I wrote the sequel, I really put the time in ahead of time. And then the sequel, it flew by, and it was really easy. And it just reminded me that, how important it is that everybody knows themselves and knows how they write best. And that's still how I write best. Not super, super detailed, but I have to at least have a roadmap that, points me where I'm going next as I'm doing it. So I don't really have a set routine. And between deadlines and books, I may not write for days on end. And when it's time, I kick it into gear. It takes me about 3 to 6 months, depending on the genre, to write a book. And I'm a big procrastinator. And I procrastinate until I get close enough to the deadline that I freak out, and then I start writing, and it's always slow at the beginning. I may only get 500 words the first few days. And then towards the end, I'm sleeping less, and I'm pulling all-nighters more, and I'm writing thousands and thousands of words, and I just kind of speed up an avalanche toward my deadline. And for some reason, that seems to work for me. Now, one of my sisters says, you can't keep this up forever. You're getting older, and you can't keep pulling all-nighters and doing all this kind of thing, which is probably true. I do find that I'm getting tired, a little bit more sometimes. So, but I'm not a very disciplined person. I never have been. I've tried to instill routines and different things throughout my life, and it's never worked well. But one thing I do work well is I work well under a deadline and in panic mode. So, and I work well by obsession. So I'm a fairly obsessive person. And that's what has helped me to propel forward. And I'm a pretty tenacious person. I don't give up. So that's served me really well too.
Sure.
So I wish that I could say I get up every morning, write for 2 hours and, spit out my 2,000 words, but I very rarely have days like that. So, yeah.
I know a guy who he gets up and walks from his bed to his bathroom, then his bathroom to his writing room, and he writes for 2.5 hours. And his coffee pot turns on automatically, and everything's just all set. And his computer's set up. His word processor's open, and he just goes.
Yeah.
And
I wish I could be that person.
Man, that sounds like a great idea. And I tried it for like 3 days, and I'm like, man, this sucks. I can't.
I wake up in the morning and there's always something to do. I mean, there's like stuff with the kids or random, and I don't know about, some people don't eat breakfast, but I'm a big breakfast person. I don't think well if I'm hungry or haven't, had a couple scrambled eggs or something. So I wake up and I don't think about writing first thing. I think about food. Oh.
See, I think about coffee. I have to have the coffee, and I have to have like my I don't want, wake up time or whatever it is, but I mean, I need to get up, get ready, not get ready, but, there's just a few things. I have a kind of a set pattern of things I need to do. And the only times that really gets, I've got 2 young kids, 3 and 10 months. And they're the ones that will take a routine and just throw it right out the window.
That's right.
But and then I have 2 older kids, a 30 and a 20-year-old.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah, all same wife, just in case you're wondering. But they luckily one's on her own and the other one's going to college, so she just sleeps all day long basically. So she doesn't interrupt, but by the time everybody gets, up and moving and everything else, it's like, okay, I've got my 4 cups of coffee. I'm ready to do something, but which is usually by the time nighttime rolls around, about 8 o'clock at night, it's like, I think I'll go ahead and write now. Like 1 o'clock.
That has been, there's been many afternoons where it's 3, 4, 5 or after dinner where, okay, that'd be stuff. And maybe it should, maybe I should reorder some of those things, but sometimes it just works out that way because you've got stuff you have to do and, you still have to, I write for a living, but I also have real life happening, in the background and in the course of the day. So
are you sure you're not living in the past? I mean, real life happenings, that hasn't happened for at least, 10 months now.
That's true. Real life has not happened for
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's
that
true.
Snarky Midwest, sense of humor there.
Yeah. I felt like we were kind of protected from, everything being so different for a while because, out on the farm, you don't notice that you're, in lockdown because, you're just hanging out at home or, you made, we have to make a special trip out to go out to eat or something like that. But after a while, it's like, I just want to go out for dinner.
Yeah.
I just want to, go shopping or go on vacation.
Yeah. My 20-year-old daughter, she works at a shop in the mall. And that's been interesting listening to her stories on that. There's not a whole lot of hours there or whatever, which is okay. She's going to college, which has been another, it's basically all online.
Oh yeah.
And social life has been basically, as a friend of mine puts it, potted. Actually a couple of them do. You just kind of have your little groups of people that you kind of hang out with that what they're doing and as long as they're all
Yeah.
staying at home or, you know, doing whatever, I guess it's fine or whatever. But, and then there's a certain group of people that you might never see again because they're so scared and stuck in their houses that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Or the people that are out all the time and you're like, okay, I'm not hanging out with you right now.
Yeah, there's them too. There's them too.
Yeah.
That's some good English right there.
We've tried really hard, and you know, we've done our best, and you know, we've been, our family's been pretty fortunate, but it's been hard. It's been a really awkward social year too. I mean, it's just awkward all around.
Yeah, it is the weirdest thing running into somebody you know and they stand, you know, 6-8 feet away and they're wearing a mask and everything else. And, you know,
it's weird too. I mean, I'm a hugger, you know, so it's like you don't hug people now. It's like,
yeah, you do this arm thing or, you know, fist bump.
Oh yeah,
or,
I don't
you know,
like that. That's yeah.
I just as soon skip the whole damn thing.
Yeah, me too. It's kind of
know.
like, all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awkward.
And if by giving a hug, I'm going to contract something, you know, well, I don't know, but you can't do that now.
It's been really weird.
I think the neatest thing is walking into a bank with a mask on. I just, you know,
which is acceptable now.
Yeah. All of a sudden, you know, it's no big deal as to, you know, when, you know, in the olden days that happened, everybody ducked behind something, but nowadays it's like, well, everybody's got a mask on. Well,
since we're living in opposite worlds, so
yeah, the lawless ones don't wear masks anymore.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. What a world! What times we live in? Who knew?
It's kind of interesting, you know. I'm kind of waiting to see how many books come out that incorporate masks.
You know, that's something I've been thinking about a lot. I mean, one of the things I'm working on right now is a World War II book. So it's not something I have to deal with. But if I were writing a contemporary book, I keep thinking to myself, would I have characters would I mention them carrying a mask, wearing a mask, putting one on, taking one off? Or, you know, do you kind of ignore it and then people can assume they're doing that or not, depending on the time that they're reading? I mean, I've been kind of wondering how other authors are handling that.
Yeah. I think the erotica folks are going to have a hard time with this. It's going to have to be like a leather mask that you can't breathe through, or just, you know, I don't know. It'll be weird. Whatever it is, they'll make it odd.
You know, make it odd. Yeah, that's right.
Anyway. Oh, so what else you want to talk about?
Question of masks. Oh, I don't know. You know, it's been just kind of a run-of-the-mill day. We've talked about how weird it's been. We've talked about, you know, I think it's been a tough year for authors as far as promotion. I have a lot of friends that I know are in a similar boat where, you know, you have all these things planned and events planned and you delay them and then you end up canceling them. And I miss getting out and seeing readers, because as much as I love storytelling, the thing I love most is being with readers, talking with readers. I mean, that's the funnest part of my job, is to interact with them. And I guess one kind of weird hidden blessing that has come out of this whole pandemic is early on in, I think it was April, I made the decision to do a nightly story time every single night and go live on Facebook and spend time with them. And we did that for like 66 or 67 days in a row. And then we moved it to every week after a while. But it was a really unique time to get together and see the same people and you know, hear what was going on with their week. And I feel like I know a big handful of my readers so much better now. And so that was really cool. Something I'm really grateful for that has come out of this last year, because, you know, how would we have had that time otherwise? And it was a regular, you know, we probably got together 100 times, you know, so it was cool. It was really, I have never worn my makeup that many days in a row in my entire life. So that was the hardest thing about it to me, because I don't do that. But it was a really cool and unique time. So yeah.
So
what do you want to talk about, Jeff?
What's that? I was going to ask you what's on the horizon for you. What do you got coming out?
Well, I'm working on this book with another author, Marcus Brotherton, and it's about 3 young teenage boys who enlist right before World War II and are stationed in the Philippines. And then the war starts, and they end up helping to defend the Bataan Peninsula, and they become prisoners of war for 3 years plus. And it's based on true accounts. It's inspired by true accounts. And it's a hard story to tell, but I think it's an important one. And so that's what I'm working on right now. We've had the story done for a while, but we're revising it, and we will soon hope to. It's one that we did in between some other stuff, so it's already done, which is a different process than normal when you're on contract, and you contract and then you go write it.
Right.
So we're hoping to find a home for that one soon. And it wasn't a story, it wasn't an event in history that I was very familiar with before. And so I'm really glad to have learned as much as I have about it. It's as difficult as it is. It's a really tough subject to read about and hear about and learn about, but I'm glad that we're telling the story.
It's important to take stories like that and throw them out there so other people can experience them.
Yeah.
I think stuff like that makes it gives people perspective. Maybe that's the best way of putting it, because especially, there's a lot of things that people are like, oh, you know what, I'm going to go do this. And it's like, you don't understand the unintended consequences or the ramifications of such an action, and I think it's important to have those types of conversations within literature or books, because the more realistic it is, the more people can imagine, if I make this decision, how horrible it possibly could be, and you hope you affect society a little bit or make them think, but most times you don't, because they're hooked into news and whatever. But
well, and so much of the literature, so many novels about World War II are focused on Europe, and have basically ignored the Pacific theater. So it's not something I really knew that much about myself. So I'm glad to be able to shine a little bit more light on the events that happened there. And so that's what I'm working on. I'm doing some we've got some cool projects in development for TV. Actually, The Line Between was in development, but when the pandemic hit, nobody suddenly wanted to talk about a TV series about a pandemic. So it's kind of
weird.
on hold. Yeah, it's like too soon, so
too soon.
Too soon. But there's a couple others that are in development. So it's kind of fun to kind of see how those things are creeping along. I mean, so much of Hollywood kind of shut down and, trying to get moving again. But, it's always fun to kind of see how that stuff works. And,
So how did you get picked up into that? Was that something that your publisher actually pitched, or somebody pitched for you? Or is it something that somebody just read it and said, oh my God, this would make the perfect, series or movie?
Yeah, well, authors, I think authors often get approached by different studios or producers who have either heard about a property, or a property by that I mean a book, or the book sale has been announced on like Publisher's Lunch, and they may see it there and contact the author because it sounds like a property that they may want to pick up for a project down the road. In my case, it was, I've had that happen several times. Radar Pictures reached out to me and they wanted to talk about one of my books, and it was spoken for at the time. And so I said, I've got this other duology coming up. It leans young adult, and they were interested in that. And I hadn't even written it yet, so I wrote it, and then they've been working on developing that, and it's in development now. But that means that a lot of things still have to fall into place. So it's kind of fun to see how this all works and to see how the pitches go and the meetings go. And at one point I got to go out to LA and so sit in on the pitches and, get to just see how the whole process unfolds. Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating, and it's a lot of stuff has to happen, but it's interesting. So it's been a real learning experience.
I bet.
It's nothing that you can, I had a friend who once said, when it comes to TV and movies, getting your books made into TV and movies, you can die of optimism, which is true. So it's not, nothing that you can, like stop writing and just, hold out and wait. You have to keep living your life.
Yeah. The thing that I see popping up more and more, and these are kind of in different like Facebook groups and stuff like that, are these companies that, hey, you know what, pitch us your book and we will buy it, we'll take the rights and we'll make sure this gets into a TV show or something like that. Sounds like a total scam. It just, I'm not even sure what those are all about, but I've had people,
I'm not either.
I've seen posts where I've got this company that's really interested in making my book into a TV series. And, and then it's like, okay, what's the company name? It's like, they've been advertising on Facebook for I don't know how many, I don't know if that's the way that happens, and it's like, be careful.
Yeah.
Don't sign anything until you have a lawyer look at it that's familiar with the entertainment sector of the United States,
Yeah. I would say for sure you need a very capable lawyer to go over all that stuff. And even that part just takes months to go through that. We had one contract that we did with a network, and it was, I swear this contract was like 60 pages long or something. It was like, so it's just a slow process. And I think the road to getting to that point of TV and movies is probably a little different every single time.
Right. Who was the author that wrote First Blood, the Rambo movie?
David Morrell.
David Morrell. I remember reading a story about him where he had hired this lawyer and he was looking over the contract, and the lawyer made a change in the contract so that he would get royalties on everything that any merchandising. And he said, I was so pissed off because it cost me an extra $500. And I'm like, this guy's ripping me off. What? Basically, he's just what a jerk, what a scam artist. I can't believe this guy. And the lawyer tried to explain to him that, this is necessary because once this goes into Hollywood, it may not be, like it, they'll take liberties with your book and it may turn into something that you have no idea about. And he said, he said, in retrospect, that $500 has made me millions. And he laughs when he walks down the aisle of a store and he sees, Rambo lunch boxes. And, he said, everybody dies in the end, and it was an anti-war movie. And now it's the war movie, he said, just whatever.
Yeah. I've met David. He's a very, very nice person. He used to teach in Iowa, actually, for many years.
Yep.
And he was pretty public about the fact that he didn't really like the last Rambo movie. He didn't like the direction that it went.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that's got to be really hard, but at that point I don't know how you handle that. Yeah.
Especially with him, because he had a very specific message for, the reason he wrote his books and what he was trying to, put across as his message. And then it kind of gets lost
in the last one. Yeah.
But,
but that is the hard part. You do give up your control.
Yep. And when Sly Stallone wants something, he gets it.
Yeah.
I'm guessing. I don't know.
I'm guessing you're probably right. Yeah.
Very cool. Do you have any last words for your readers and fans and everything else?
Oh gosh, I just want to give my love and extreme gratitude to my readers and fans, because I think I have the coolest readers in the world, and they're wonderful people, and I love entertaining them, and they are the reason I am able to keep writing and keep doing what I do. So I'm grateful for that every single time I sit down to write. And the days I complain, I'm like, this is hard, and blah, blah. You know, I have to come back to that place where it's like, you know what, this is what I always wanted to do, and they're making it possible, and I want to put out a good story for them.
Sure.
So yeah.
Very cool.
So I'm happy to do that.
Very cool. So in the show notes, in case you haven't heard about Tosca Lee, I will have your website and some links to your books and everything else, so that people
Awesome.
can, if they haven't heard of you, can obviously find you very quickly online and in the various stores that you're in. I appreciate the time that you give me today on a cold, snowy day in Nebraska.
Hey, it was my pleasure. This is the perfect day to be sitting here having a good chat while the snow's falling outside. So
yeah, it is not a bad thing to do at all. And I tell you what, I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Well, thank you. And I want to say thank you, Jeff, for the time that you spend doing this and helping to get word out about other authors, because you're invaluable. And I just appreciate the time you dedicate to doing this, because I know it's very time consuming. So
yeah, but it's an awful lot of fun. You know, the thing that I like about this show is that I can have a New York Times best-selling author on here, and then the next show can be an author who's putting out her very first book and nervous as hell, and it's like, oh my God, this is my first podcast, my first whatever. And you know, that's the part I love about it, is that I have such a diverse amount of guests. So, you know, somebody who's never heard of you can find your books, but also that same person can find a brand new author that, you know, this is their first book. It might not be their best work in their career, but they found, you know, they can find them and they can understand what, you know, by talking about this, what authors go through to put out books, and how they feel about, you know, like you said, your audiences and why you do what you do and everything else. And it's very gratifying for me to do this. So, you know. Well,
I appreciate it very much, because especially these days, trying to find new ways to find new readers is one of the toughest, if not the toughest parts of the marketing side of this whole thing. So
agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
That's the hair pulling part.
It is. But you know what? Yeah. It's also very rewarding when you do find another reader and they email you and you say, oh my God, I love your stuff. And it's like, oh, they love me. You know, yeah.
They love me.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much, Tosca Lee. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
With that, I'm going to call this show to a close. Thank you very much for listening. This is Jeff with the DIY Writer Podcast, saying if you wouldn't mind, subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow me on whatever podcast medium you happen to be listening to this on. I want you all to have a great day and keep your chin up. Bye-bye.
Please hit the subscribe button. I get a bonus for every subscriber, and I only need 1,506 more to become a full-time paid employee. Help me, please.